Hello, everybody. So, I'm actually going to be Piglet in doing this. So, Miss Piglet, sucks to be you. But I think people actually want somebody who knows how to pronounce the English language and knows how to write it. You hooked on phonics failure? So, sucks to be you. Okay. So, here we go. And this is what we're going to do tonight. And let me share my tab here. So apparently, Indiana got rid of their permit to carry handguns. So, effective July 1st, Indiana residents are no longer required to obtain or possess a license or permit to carry a handgun. Here's what we know about the law and where we stand amid a growing conversation around gun reform. What is the law going into effect on July 1st? House Bill 1296 repeals the law that requires people to obtain a license to carry a handgun in Indiana. This means that people who are not otherwise prohibited from carrying or possessing a handgun don't have to obtain or possess a license or permit from the state to carry a handgun. The law also makes it a crime to carry a handgun unlawfully. This could be a misdemeanor offense or felony depending on the circumstance. Who is prohibited from possessing or carrying a handgun? While the law allows most people to carry a handgun without a permit, it does prohibit some people from knowingly or intentionally carrying a handgun. This includes those convicted of a federal or state offense punishable by more than 1 year, except for crimes such as antitrust violations, unfair trade practices, restraints of trade, and other offenses related to the regulations of business practices. Fugitives from justice, those not lawfully in the United States, those convicted of crimes of domestic violence, domestic battery, or criminal stalking, those restrained by a protection order, those under indictment, those who have been determined by a court to be dangerous to themselves or others, those who have been determined by a court to lack the mental capacity to contact or manage their own affairs, those committed to a mental institution, those dishonorably discharged from the military service or the National Guard, those who renounce their United States citizenship, those under 18 years old, those under 23 who have been previously found by the court to be a delinquent child. What is the penalty for violating the new law? The law specifies that people who carry a handgun unlawfully face a Class A misdemeanor. This is the most serious misdemeanor and is punishable by up to 1 year in jail and a fine of up to $5,000. In some situations, people violating the law could face a level 5 felony. This is the same level felony as manslaughter, robbery without injury, or criminal recklessness. They carry the potential of 1 to 6 years imprisonment. The violation would be a felony if the offense is committed on or in school property within 500 feet of school property or on a school bus. The person has a prior conviction of unlawful carrying of a firearm. The person has a prior conviction of carrying a handgun without a license before the law was repealed. The person has been convicted of a felony within 15 years. The law also enhanced the crime of theft to a level 5 felony if the stolen item is a firearm. What do law enforcement officials have to say about the new law? Before Governor Eric Holcomb signed the bill into law, Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department Assistant Chief Chris Bailey wrote an opinion piece in the Indianapolis Star calling for the legislation to be vetoed. Bailey joined Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter in opposition to the law. It's going to embolden those that are already illegally possessing weapons to walk around freely with them, knowing that law enforcement has limited opportunities to engage them, especially if they're not involved in any other criminal activity. Bailey said in the March report those who are prohibited from holding a weapon are going to be able to do so freely without many checks and law enforcement, and that's not very good for our community since we are combating gun violence all over. Since the legislation was signed into law, Carter said his staff is researching best practices for law enforcement agencies across the state to determine a gun owner's legal status. Policing in Indiana is at a crossroads, and more people are leaving than are coming, and there's only so much that we're going to be able to do, said Carter. With the applicants that we used to have who would apply to carry a handgun in Indiana, we're not doing mental health checks anymore. Not all law enforcement officials were against the legislation. Hamilton County Sheriff Dennis Quackenbush, oh, there's a name, Quackenbush, told CBS 4 that there was no evidence in the 24 states that have already passed permitless carry laws that officers face any additional danger. So permanently carry is all the green states. So Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, South Dakota, Utah, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, Kentucky, of course, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Permit required is Washington State, Oregon, California, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico, Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, and Louisiana, and also Hawaii. Permitless carry for residents only is in North Dakota. Our law enforcement system, our judicial justice system, is founded on the principle that a person is innocent until proven guilty, and really, this bill seeks to put the onus on the government to prove that an individual is committing a crime at the time that they are found with a handgun, Sheriff Quackenbush said in our March report. Sheriff Quackenbush said while there are provisions that make it more difficult for law enforcement to enforce, he is confident that systems can be put in place to identify those who should not be carrying a handgun. What do lawmakers say about the new law after the recent mass bang bangs? In the wake of Texas mass bang bang that killed 19 children and 2 teachers, we asked lawmakers about the law that is about to come into effect. The 2 most powerful leaders at the Indiana State House told CBS 4 that they have no new ideas on curbing schoolhouse violence in the state. House Speaker Todd Houston said he has no second thoughts about the legislation. Governor Holcomb said he has no doubts about allowing the bill to become law. Both top Indiana Republicans told CBS 4 the issue of gun violence is complex, with multiple factors to be considered, including mental health services. They referred to improved mental health services as a component to any approach to reducing the level of gun violence. Neither leading Republican would commit to a non-Second Amendment response to curbing gun violence, such as a ban on the type of body armor that mass bang-bang users often wear to protect themselves from police gunfire. This frustrated Superintendent Carter. How about we try something? I'm angry about it because that's why we find ourselves where we are. We cannot continue to say that. Carter told CBS 4, how about we take some responsibility? How about we at least swing at that ball? And to say you can't do something right now when everybody's afraid. Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett, oh my God, these names, said his hands were tied as the city is prohibited from enacting ordinances that countermand state and federal law regarding firearms. What is going on in the national conversation? While Indiana is about to see permitless carry take effect, the conversation around gun regulation is growing amid a rash of mass bang-bangs. The Supreme Court recently issued its biggest gun rights ruling in more than a decade when it struck down New York's proper cause requirement. In the ruling, the justices said that Americans have a right to carry firearms in public for self-defense. We're going to get to that because I have an issue with that. That does not yeah, we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that right now. Because that does not sound right to me. So, yeah, we'll come back to this in just a minute, but that doesn't sound right to me. So, you'll understand why this does not sit well with me. There it is. The Constitution of the United States of America in 1789, revised in 1992. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay. That does not say anything about self-defense here. This says a regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, meaning that they have the right to defend the country from invaders. How do you get self-defense from that? Am I missing something here? Am I misreading the Second Amendment? Because it says right here, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, meaning you're defending the country. You're not technically defending. Yeah. Either I'm reading that wrong or I'm understanding it wrong, but it does not say you have the right to defend yourself with a weapon. No, you have the right to defend your government. You can act as a militia to protect the government from invaders. I don't think this is, yeah, I think that's a far reach. Y'all let me think. You all tell me what you all think, because right there, that's a far reach for me. Yeah, see, right here, court held the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to possess a firearm unconnected with service in a militia and to use that arm for lawful purposes such as self-defense within the home. But once again, that's not what the Constitution says. It says the security of a free state. It does not say security of a free home. Anyways, you all let me think. You all tell me what you think it means, okay? I'm just telling you what it means to me, but you all tell me what you think. Okay, we're going to go back to the Indiana thing here. Yeah. Indiana. There we go. All right. In return, the Associated Press reports that New York is overhauling its rules for carrying guns after the court decided that ordinary citizens had a right to arm themselves in public for self-defense, something the state limited in the past mostly to people working in law enforcement or security. Oregon is the only state with a gun safety initiative underway for the November election. The Oregon initiative would require anyone wanting to get a firearm to obtain a permit after completing a safety training, passing a criminal background check, and meeting other requirements. President Joe Biden also recently signed the most sweeping gun violence bill in decades. The legislation will toughen background checks for the youngest gun buyers, keep firearms from more domestic violence offenders, and help states put in place red flag laws that make it easier for authorities to take weapons from people judged to be dangerous. Even though congressional Republicans joined Democrats in supporting the steps after recent rampages in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas, it took weeks of closed-door talks, but senators emerged with a compromise. And this leads us to another problem, because it doesn't matter what the president signs into law or what the Senate signs into law. If the Supreme Court finds that it violates the Second Amendment, the Supreme Court can nullify that. Believe it or not, they can nullify it. If it violates the Constitution in any way, shape, or form, the Supreme Court can nullify anything the Senate passes or what the president signs into law. And you need to remember that. You need to remember that. The Supreme Court can actually overrule our government if it violates our constitutional rights. Now, I am going to do this because this is part of what little Hooked on Phonics failure wanted to do, but we're going to do it and beat her to it. Yes, we are. Okay. All right. Here we go. Oops, this is the wrong one. That is the wrong one. We wanted that one. Okay, we want that tab. All right. What the data says about gun deaths in the U.S. More Americans died of gun-related injuries in 2020 than any other year on record, according to recently published statistics from the CDC from the CDC. That included a record number of gun murders as well as near record number of gun suicides. Despite the increase in such fatalities, the rate of gun deaths, a statistic that accounts for the nation's growing population, remains below the levels of earlier years. When was this one written? Okay, this was in February of this year. Hold on here. Let me see something here. I'm going to continue, but I want to see something. Okay. Oops. Where'd it go? Okay. Here's a closer look at gun deaths in the United States based on a Pew Research Center analysis of data from the CDC, the FBI, and other sources. You can also read key public opinion findings about U.S. gun violence and gun policy in our recent roundup. How many people die from gun related injuries in the U.S. each year? In 2020, the most recent year for which complete data is available, 45,222 people died from gun related injuries in the U.S., according to the CDC. That figure includes gun murders and gun suicides, along with three other less common types of gun related deaths tracked by the CDC: those that were unintentional, those that involved law enforcement, and those whose circumstances could not be determined. The total excludes deaths in which gunshot injuries played a contributing but not principal role. CDC fatality statistics are based on information contained in official death certificates, which identify a single cause of death. What share of U.S. gun deaths are murders and what are suicides? Though they tend to get less public attention than gun-related murders, suicides have long accounted for the majority of U.S. gun deaths. In 2020, 54% of all gun-related deaths in the U.S. were suicides, 24,292, while 43% were murders, 19,384, according to the CDC. The remaining gun deaths that year were unintentional, 535, involved law enforcement, 611, or had undetermined circumstances, 400. What share of all murders and suicides in the U.S. involves a gun? Nearly 8 in 10, 79% U.S. murders in 2020, 19,384 out of 24,576 involved a firearm. That marked the highest percentage since at least 1968, the earliest year for which the CDC has online records. A little over half, 53% of all suicides in 2020, 24,292 out of 45,979 involved a gun, a percentage that has generally remained stable in recent years. How has the number of U.S. gun deaths over time? The 45,222 total gun deaths in 2020 were by far the most on record, representing a 14% increase from the year before, a 25% increase from 5 years earlier, and a 43% increase from a decade prior. Gun murders in particular have climbed sharply in recent years. The 19,384 gun murders that took place in 2020 were the most since at least 1968, exceeding the previous peak of 18,253 recorded by the CDC in 1993. The 2020 total represented a 34% increase from the year before, a 49% increase over 5 years, and a 75% increase over 10 years. Please, excuse me, I gotta go look at my dogs for a minute. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Okay, the number of gun suicides has also risen in recent years, climbing 10% over 5 years and 25% over 10 years, and is near its highest point on record. The 24,292 gun suicides that took place in 2020 were the most in any year except 2018, when there were 24,432. How has the rate of U.S. gun deaths changed over time? Oh boy. While 2020 saw the highest total number of gun deaths in the U.S., this statistic does not take into account the nation's growing population. On a per capita basis, there were 13.6 gun deaths per 100,000 people in 2020, the highest rate since the mid 1990s, but still well below the peak of the 16.3 gun deaths per 100,000 people in 1974. The gun murder and gun suicide rates in the U.S. both remain below their peak levels. There were 6.2 gun murders per 100,000 people in 2020, below the rate of 7.2 recorded in 1974, and there were 7.0 gun suicides per 100,000 people in 2020, below the rate of 7.7 measured in 1977. One caveat when considering the 1970s figures: in the CDC's database, gun murders and gun suicides between 1968 and 1978 are classified as those caused by firearms and explosives. In subsequent years, they are classified as deaths involving firearms only. Which states have the highest and lowest gun death rates in the U.S.? Ooh. The rate of gun fatalities varies widely from state to state. In 2020, the states with the highest rates of gun-related deaths, counting murders, suicides, and all other categories tracked by the CDC, included Mississippi, 28.6 per 100,000 people, Louisiana, 26.3, Wyoming, 25.9, Missouri, 23.9, and Alabama, 23.6. The states with the lowest rates included New York at 5.3, Rhode Island at 5.1, New Jersey at 5.0, Massachusetts at 3.7, and Hawaii 3.4. How does gun death rate in the U.S. compared to other countries? The gun death rate in the U.S. is much higher than in most other nations, particularly developed nations, but it is still far below the rates in several Latin American countries. According to a 2018 study of 195 countries and territories by researchers at the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at the University of Washington, the U.S. gun death rate was 10.6 per 100,000 people in 2016, the most recent year in the study, which used a somewhat different methodology from the CDC. That was far higher than in countries such as Canada, 2.1 per 100,000 people, and Australia, 1.0, as well as European nations such as France, 2.7, Germany, 0.9. I have an ex-military person who probably would disprove this figure, but she doesn't want to come up here yet. So I'm just gonna say, you know what? I'll ask my ex-military friend if that's true or not. And Spain, 0.6, but the rate in the U.S. But the rate in the U.S. was much lower than in El Salvador at 39.2 per 100,000 people. Venezuela, 38.7, Guatemala, 32.3, Colombia, 25.9, and Honduras, 22.5. The study found overall the U.S. ranked 20th in its gun fatality rate that year. How many people are killed in mass shootings in the U.S. every year? This is a difficult question to answer because there is no single agreed upon definition of the term mass shooting. Definitions can vary depending on factors including the number of victims and the circumstances of the shooting. The FBI collects data on active shooter incidents, which it defines as one or more individuals actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a populated area. Using the FBI's definition, 38 people, excluding the shooters, died in such incidents in 2020. The Gun Violence Archive, an online database of gun violence incidents in the U.S., defines mass shootings as incidents in which four or more people are shot, even if no one was killed, again, excluding the shooters. Using this definition, 513 people died in these incidents in 2020. Regardless of the definition being used, fatalities and mass shootings incidents in the U.S. account for a small fraction of all gun murders that occur nationwide each year. How has the number of mass shootings in the U.S. changed over time? The same definitional issue that makes it challenging to arrive at an exact number of mass shooting fatalities comes into play when trying to determine the frequency of U.S. mass shootings over time. The unpredictability of these incidents also complicates matters. As Rand Corr noted in a research brief, chance variability in the annual number of mass shooting incidents makes it challenging to discern a clear trend, and trend estimates will be sensitive to outliers and to the time frame chosen for analysts. The FBI found an increase in active shooter incidents between 2000 and 2020. There were 3 such incidents in 2000. By 2020, that figure had increased to 40. Which types of firearms are most commonly used in gun murders in the United States? In 2020, handguns were involved in 59% of the 13,620 U.S. gun murders and non-negligent manslaughters for which data is available, according to the FBI. Rifles, the category that includes guns, sometimes referred to as assault weapons, were involved in 3% of firearm murders. Shotguns were involved in 1%. The remainder of gun homicides and non-negligent manslaughters, 36%, involved other kinds of firearms or those classified as type not stated. It's important to note that the FBI statistics do not capture the details on all gun murders in the U.S. each year. The FBI's data is based on information voluntarily submitted by police departments around the country, and not all agencies participate or provide complete information each year. Okay, so this was actually an update of a post originally published in in August 16th, 2019. Now I'm going to share this other one because the other one is what I actually want. It goes hand in hand with this. Mass shootings and gun violence in the United States are increasing. Actually, I have to disagree with this one. I don't believe mass shootings and gun violence in the United States are increasing. And I do believe they're increasing across the globe. We are seeing gun violence now in countries that very rarely have them. So I don't think that it's just rising or increasing in the United States. It's happening around the world. On May 24th, an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, 19 children and 2 teachers were killed by a shooter. Just 10 days earlier, a white gunman was accused of a racially motivated shooting in a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, that left 10 black people dead. These tragic incidents are among the latest mass shootings to rattle the United States, the only country with more civilian-owned firearms than citizens. Sadly, mass shootings, the definitions of which vary, are just a fraction of the story. In the United States, gun violence incidents are on the rise. In 2021, nearly 21,000 people were killed by firearms, not including suicides. According to the Gun Violence Archive, an online database of U.S. gun violence incidents, and that's a 33% increase from 2017, the year that firearm-related injuries surpassed motor vehicle crashes as the most common cause of death among children and adolescents. In that same time frame, active shooter incidents nearly doubled. The FBI designates an active shooter as one or more individuals who are engaged in killing or attempting to kill in a populated area. In 2021, 61 incidents in the United States killed 103 people. In 2017, the number of incidents was 31, though deaths totaled 143. I can't think of an issue that requires more urgency and attention, says Sonali Rajan, a school violence prevention researcher from Columbia University. Gun violence is a solvable problem. Okay, so here's a graph about active shooters. Data collected by the FBI reveal a steady increase over the past 20 years in active shooter incidents, which the Bureau defines as one or more individuals who are engaged in killing or attempting to kill in a populated area. As you can see, from 2000, we had 3, 2001, 10, 2002, 2002 we had 7, 2003 we had 12, 2004 we had 5, 2005 11, 2006 12, 2007 14, 2008 9, 2009 19, 2010 27, 2011 13, 2012 21, 2013 19, 2014 20, 2015 20, 2016 20, 2017 31, 2018 30, 2019 30, 2020 we had 40, and in 2021 we had 61. In 2020, the U.S. CDC and the National Institutes of Health awarded a combined $25 million in grants for research on gun violence prevention, ending a 25-year paucity of federal funding in the field. During that decades-long financial drought, research on gun violence prevention relied on funds from private foundations and state grants. One of the few state-funded institutions in the country is the New Jersey Gun Violence Research Center at Rutgers University in Piscataway. The center conducts interdisciplinary research on the causes and preventions of gun violence, including homicides and suicides. Richard Barnes, the center's assistant director, manages research projects that focus on suicide prevention and how social disparities relate to violence in Black and Brown communities. Now, gun ownership. The United States has more than twice the number of guns per 100 people than any other country. Data from the Small Arms Survey show, with 120.5 firearms per 100 residents, that means there are more guns in the United States than there are people. So, as you can see, we actually really do outrank a lot of countries on this. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing of here because it's long, and to sum it up, there is no easy way to stop gun violence. While I believe that there are steps we can take, such as easy access to mental health, making it mandatory people have safes for their guns, but I also believe that we should hold parents responsible if their children do something stupid, because it is the parents' responsibility to make sure their firearms are kept up and kept safe. And if they fail to do so, then they need to be charged with the same offenses as their child, because they are just to blame as the child is, or as the person is. I think there are a lot of ways that we could do to help protect our citizens without negating the Second Amendment. And I do agree, we need to get assault rifles off the market. There are no need for assault rifles. None. Those are military grade weapons, and they should stay in the military. They should not be on the streets. Anyways, I hope you liked this video. Leave your comments down below. I thank you for being here. And poor little Hooked on Phonics failure. Thank you for this wonderful idea. Y'all take care, and I'll see you soon.